I remember it like it was yesterday, February 17, 2013, the day my wife and partner said, it's over. We were living in paradise on the garden island of Kauai. We just returned home from the Kalaheo Cafe, our Sunday morning ritual. Within 24 hours, my 5-year-old daughter and I were boarding a plane, returning home to Missoula, Montana. For the next month, we stayed with my folks along the banks of the Bitterroot River, trying to reestablish some form of normalcy and rhythm in the face of enormous uncertainty. It was during this time that my life's mission changed. I had been a ranger in Yellowstone, a high school basketball coach, freelance writer, fly fishing and wildlife guide, and the director and founder of a youth-based environmental nonprofit. Just your typical Montanan. I thought my mission was clear. I'd always been passionate about being a dad, but everything changed with that one-way flight from Lihue to Missoula. Now my vision was clear, and my mission far simpler. It was during that daunting time in Lolo that I made it my singular purpose to provide love, goodness, and stability to my daughter. It's not that this wasn't a purpose before, but now it became the purpose. I suspected then that structure in the form of rituals and routines would become a bedrock of our time together. In my effort to normalize things for my daughter, to make things special and memorable, I suspected I was giving her a gift. But over time, I came to realize our routines and rituals were more than a gift to my daughter. They were a gift to me. Ankylosing spondylitis, much like hardship, doesn't discriminate. It simply deals its hand. 2013 was a tough year for me and my daughter. In the midst of trying to figure things out as a single dad and gracefully deal with her going back and forth, I spent most of that year on crutches. Just weeks after ditching my sticks, I had wrist surgery. Tried doing a ponytail, let alone a French braid with one hand, and I crushed the French braid. And then in November, after years of dealing with what I thought was just achy joint pain associated with my autoimmune disorder, I was diagnosed with poorly shaped hips and a labrum tear, which led me to the University of Utah for a surgical consultation and ultimately a go big or go home surgery. 6 weeks after that surgery, I was riding home with a bus full of boys from a varsity basketball game in Boulder, Montana, and something wasn't right. The next night was my Christmas Eve with my daughter, and even though I could hardly take a breath, and my mom was pleading with me to go to the hospital, this was my first Christmas as a single dad. We needed to establish our holiday rituals, and I wasn't gonna miss playing Santa. It was a rough and rugged night as I was in agonizing pain. The next morning, after my daughter had opened the last of her gifts, my dad took me to the ER. And there I was diagnosed with a massive deep vein thrombosis and bilateral pulmonary embolisms, along with an infarct. Part of my lung was dying. There's a lot I don't remember about that week as I drifted in and out of a drug-induced coma. But I do remember my mom bringing my daughter to me on day one and her pressing her hand against my first floor window before I went into surgery. And then I remember on day 5 when they thought I had a brain bleed and they finally allowed my daughter into my room so I could say goodbye, just in case. Why do I share this story with you? I suppose I do so for a couple of reasons. One, because it's hard for me to talk about. And Brene Brown's TED Talk has over 37 million views. And she preaches the importance of embracing vulnerability. So I thought, what the heck? It can't hurt, right? Good start. And I share this because it was a painful time. And I've come to realize that pain matters. Pain comes in many different shapes and forms. Pain is relative. It's a matter of perspective. Your pain doesn't lessen mine, and mine doesn't minimize yours. But what if there was a simple way to avoid letting hardship derail us? A way to live a life that matters during the roughest of times. I'm a dad and author with an expertise in making gluten-free chocolate chip pancakes, weathering storms, and treading water. When I was 19, I was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, a joint and tendon ravaging autoimmune disorder. Hashtag Spondy Warrior, I had to sneak that in. I've fought chronic and often debilitating migraines since I was 8 years old and since 5 a.m. this morning. I've got poorly shaped hips, hence all the shifting, you'll probably see up here today. And 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with a crazy rare and incredibly uncommon clotting disorder that makes me 80 to 120 times more likely to clot than the next guy. Hence the PEs and DVT. And like a lot of people, I fight depression. But I live a good life. I crush it as a dad. And I've come to realize that the routine can become the meaningful. My goal here is pretty simple. By the end of our time together, it's my hope that you'll stop looking at routines and rituals as something to simply get through, and you'll start looking at routines and rituals as the element that inspires meaning, purpose, and connection in our day-to-day lives, even in the midst of the most challenging times. So, let's talk about routines and rituals. What are they? A routine is defined as a sequence of actions regularly followed, a fixed program. A ritual, on the other hand, is defined as a religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. Here's what they mean to me. Routines are something we practice regularly, often daily. Rituals, on the other hand, are more ceremonial, more spiritual. And though they can be practiced daily, they're more often celebrated once a week or once a season or once a year. I'm a firm believer that rituals and routines represent one of the greatest and most potent gifts that we can give our children. But it's not just kids who thrive on routines. Show me someone successful. Show me someone pushing the limits in their professional field, and I'll show you someone who's likely honoring their routines and celebrating their rituals. When did routines get such a bad rap, anyways? I suppose in our society's obsession with spontaneity, exotic travel destinations, and the popularity of the van life culture, routines can seem pretty flat. There's such a heavy emphasis in our world today on personal happiness. But regardless of how your favorite Instagram influencer portrays their life, happiness is fleeting. So much of life is out of our control. So many of our circumstances simply are what they are. I'm a big believer that we are not defined by our circumstances, but our circumstances certainly matter. Do I want to be happy? Of course, I'm human. I love that happiness dopamine. But in the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, the purpose of life is not to be happy. It's to be useful. It's to be honorable. It's to be compassionate. It's to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. And I'm convinced that rituals and routines represent the roadmap to help us achieve this noble mission. So let's start with routines and why they matter. First off, they help to inspire confidence. How many times have you heard somebody say, be confident? Just be confident, Bobby. As a coach and dad, this has always driven me mad because confidence isn't something you choose. It's not something that's in our DNA. It's not something we have or we don't. It's something we build and develop through repetition. Malcolm Gladwell calls it the 10,000-hour rule. I would argue that deliberate practice and routines go hand in hand. Look at Steph Curry. He may not be the greatest physical specimen of all time, but he sure as heck is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And while athletes are known for their elaborate and often superstitious routines, Steph Curry's pregame routine has become the stuff of legends. Players from around the league are emulating him, and fans from all over the globe are turning out 2 hours before tip-off just to catch a glimpse of a routine that has changed the game of basketball. But routines don't have to be revolutionary to matter. The simplest of routines can be the most meaningful. Let me share a few simple routines that I believe to be impactful. My daughter and I have a lot of consistency and structure in our day-to-day lives. Take her bedtime routine. Every night that she's with me over the course of the last 6 years, with very few exceptions, her bedtime routine looks the same. Right around the same time each night, she brushes her teeth, I floss her teeth, she climbs into bed, I read to her. In recent years, we listen to some Harry Potter on Audible, and then I play and sing along to the same 3 songs on repeat until she falls asleep. And we do very well in the sleep department. She gets 10 to 11 hours of sleep a night. We all know how important sleep is to all of us, but especially our kiddos. Then there's our morning routine. She hums along to Morning Edition as she works on her gratitude journal. I love the gratitude journal. I'm a big believer. 3 things you're grateful for and 1 positive I am affirmation. It serves as a journal and a reminder of the good. While she's journaling, I craft her daily lunch note. Every morning when I pack her lunch, I write her a note. And it's always a note that celebrates her character and courage while honoring who she is and what she's about. And it always ends the same. Love, Dad. We have an overflowing stash of these notes. It takes me less than 5 minutes each morning, but I like to believe that these notes provide my daughter comfort, give her a boost, and remind her that she's loved. But routines aren't just for parents. Routines are just as critical to our professional endeavors as they are to our parenting journey. I wrote my first book over the course of several years, but I was under contract for book number 2. My publisher gave me 6 months to write what ended up being an 80,000-word book. Talk about some anxiety. Okay, I followed that up with book number 3, a 100,000+ novel that I wrote over the course of about 15 months with no deadline. How did I achieve this? By developing and sticking to a writing routine, or in my case, emulating and tweaking the writing routine of Bitterroot author and legend James Lee Burke. Every morning, Monday through Friday, after getting my daughter off to school, I head to the coffee shop with a blank slate, and I would write till my noon swim. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't, but the books only got written because of my commitment to honoring this routine. Now, I'm not going to rehash a bunch of studies here, but do a Google search. Not now, okay, but sometime later. Do a Google search of exercise and depression. Or better yet, spend $6.99 and purchase Scientific American's cover story, Why Exercise May Be the Best Fix for Depression. Like a lot of people, exercise represents the most potent antidepressant I know. I had a counselor in college tell me that I medicate myself with exercise. I'm okay with that. Okay. Over time, my exercise routines have changed, but the one thing that has not changed is their consistency and their importance. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, you'll probably find me in the pool. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you'll likely find me in the weight room or the saddle of my mountain bike. Why the regimentation? Because I've experienced directly the increased productivity, joy, and sense of well-being that comes from sticking to this routine. Everyday routines make our lives more meaningful. And when we're going through hard stuff, they make our lives more tolerable. University of Albany psychologist Jennifer Weil-Malatras found that individuals who grow up with predictable daily routines are less likely to have time management and attention issues as adults. In her study, researchers examined how often children participated in 5 family routines: having dinner together as a family at least 5 times a week, reading, storytelling, or singing at least 3 times a week, and playing at least a few times a week. 11% of the children that had no family routines had high social emotional health, compared to 25% of those whose families participated in all 5 routines. The science is clear. Routines matter. But don't sleep on the power of rituals. Rituals and routines support and enhance one another. While routines shape our day-to-day lives, rituals serve as a lifeline during challenging times, something to look forward to reflect upon, experiences that give us strength during less fruitful periods. And though they're not as frequent, rituals are no less important. Like so many of you in attendance here today, we as a family seek to foster a sense of place. I take great pride in my Idaho, Wyoming, Utah roots, which run deep. And one of the best ways I know to honor this sense of place and these deep roots is to develop that sense of place in my daughter by establishing and developing rituals, returning to places of significance each year, ideally around the same time. The key to rituals resides in honoring their significance. Whether it be a quick stop and offering en route to East Glacier at the Garden of 1,000 Buddhas, or our summer pilgrimages to the family waters in western Wyoming, August swims in Lake Coeur d'Alene, or spring break mountain bike trips to Utah. These rituals have become a rite of passage for my daughter, a religious experience for Dad. But rituals don't mean one has to pack up a truck and journey off to remote and distant places. Ask my daughter her favorite ritual, and she won't hesitate when answering. Sunday mornings. Every Sunday since we've returned to Montana starts the same at our house. Gluten-free chocolate chip pancakes and traditional Hawaiian music. It's what we do, it's who we are, and it's something we look forward to all week. And I promise when I say there's magic in our Sunday mornings. But rituals don't have to be on the calendar or scheduled to be meaningful. One of my most cherished rituals with my daughter is one of spontaneity. It's something I've done with her since she's a baby. It's a simple touch of our foreheads. When I'm dropping her off at school, before a big swim heat, when she's frustrated with homework, or just needing a little extra love, we honor the power of this ritual. This picture was taken before a big open water swim on Lake Coeur d'Alene this past August. My daughter, Kamaya, is a strong swimmer, but the thought of being dropped off in the middle of Lake Coeur d'Alene for a 1.2-mile swim to shore caused some fear and anxiety, understandable for a 10-year-old or a 38-year-old. There was a part of her that didn't want to do the swim. But then after getting in touch with her fear part and her true self and doing a little growth mindset work, all routines of ours, she leaned over and said, "Daddy, did you bring my wetsuit?" And then just minutes before we jumped in the water, my wife caught this moment, one of my favorite pictures of all time, of a ritual that I like to believe gave my daughter the comfort and confidence to do something extraordinary. So, maybe I've sold some of you, maybe I haven't. Maybe you're already a believer and practitioner, or perhaps you're just on a ritual and routine sabbatical. Or maybe you don't think this can possibly be an idea worth spreading. But for those of you who are ready to jump on the ritual and routine bandwagon or to get back to your rituals and routines, you might be asking yourself, how do I stick with them? I'm not going to stand up here and pretend that developing and sticking with rituals and routines is easy. But I do believe that the path is relatively simple and straightforward. First and foremost, it's all about the effort. Just like life, it's all about the effort. I tell my daughter and the kids I coach this every day. It's not about the outcome, it's about the effort. Effort matters. Effort is everything. Next step, ODAT. One day at a time. Until your routines become routine, one day at a time. Step 3, be sensible about your routines. Start small. I'm a huge think big and dream even bigger believer, but be sensible about your routines. Being sensible imparts wisdom, your wise mind, your true self, and I would encourage everybody to get in touch with your true self early and often. Be consistent and trust the process. Step 4, be consistent but not militant. We must be adaptable in life. And our rituals and routines are no different. Sometimes things don't go as planned, so we adapt, we adjust, we regroup. Perhaps your noon swim becomes an evening spin. As much as I believe in the power of rituals and routines, I also believe in the importance of breaking them up, sometimes blowing them up completely. Spontaneity in the form of a quick trip, a sick day, or an afternoon on the water is always a good thing and only enhances our ability to stick with our rituals and routines. And lastly, we need tools, strategies, and perhaps a good counselor to help our rituals and routines stick. What that looks like for you is best discovered by you. If you have obsessive compulsive tendencies, that's helpful, but not entirely necessary. Okay? What that looks like for me is mantras, sticky notes, color-coded calendars, music, and Dr. John Wimberly, my counselor, my mentor, my guru. What would John do? Rituals and routines help us meet each day with character, courage, love, and grace. This can be a difficult task when we or our loved ones are in the thick of it and weathering storms. They provide a roadmap and help to inspire meaning, purpose, and connection while treading water during difficult times. Rituals and routines matter. And in our hyperactive society and its obsession with being busy and productivity, I'm not sure that they've ever mattered more. May each of you embrace the power of rituals and routines in your day-to-day lives. And may the ordinary become your extraordinary.